Well, welcome back. Here we are on a beautiful day in Southern California in the mountains. Temperatures, there's 60 degrees. I can't believe it, it's winter. 60 degrees. Anyway, beautiful day outside. What we're here to talk about today is the twin forces. Twin forces that control our lives even if we don't know it. They control it. The first one is pain. And the second one is pleasure. How do they work, and how do they work against us, and how do they work for us? Let me give you a story to illustrate this example. I had a client of mine, person who I knew and worked with, a nice guy, who was a severe alcoholic, went to rehab 5 times. Into rehab, every time he left, within a month, the longest I think he said was 6 weeks, he started drinking again. And when I say drinking, he would do a case in a day. He was drinking so bad. I asked him one time, why didn't you quit? And he said, well, the first thing is, do you know what that's like when I quit? I said, no. He said, if I quit, I have to go through DTs, detox. And do you know what that's like? I said, no. He said, it's pretty bad. It makes you sick, you vomit, etc., etc., etc. I said, okay, but is that the only reason? He said, no. You know, I've done it 5 times. And every time I've done it, I failed. And I feel like a failure. There's more pain on top of it. He kept failing, which is more pain. Embarrassment, for example, is considered pain or discomfort, if we'd like to call it that. So that's what happened with him. He had a very severe case of alcoholism. I said to him, in 4 hours' time, you could change all of that. And he goes, how is that possible? And I said, by using the pain and the pleasure, but reversing it on yourself. I said, just imagine what would happen if instead of drinking, having pleasure, you found drinking painful. And he thought about it and he said, yeah, that sounds pretty simple. In fact, it sounds very simple. He had been through lots of rehabs and probably spent 6-8 months of his life in rehab, listening to all the psychologists telling him all the things he did and not did, but whatever. The bottom line was he was afraid of doing it. I explained to him that the process I would take him through would be somewhat discomfortable, painful if you want, but it would only last about an hour, maybe 2, and then the outcome would be we would go to pleasure. We would talk about the pleasure part of it, and that would last about 2 hours, but then it would last a lifetime. He thought about it, came back to me one day and said he was ready. He wasn't. I explained to him he wasn't ready. Finally, I guess after about 30 days, he came back and said, I'm ready. And I said, why? And he gave me all the reasons he needed to quit. All the reasons he had to quit drinking. Once I figured that out and with him, and he kind of gave me the framework of what he needed to quit and why he needed to quit, we began the process of hypnotherapy. And from that process, we were able to show him what the pain would be and then show him what the pleasure would be of quitting. I had another person that smoked pot every single day, every single night, constantly. Well, wound up losing his job and immediately had pain. Couldn't get another job because he would always test positive for pain. He'd always test positive for pot. The problem was he worked in construction. And in construction, they would always test you to see what to see if you had pot. And even if you worked there, every once in a while it'd be random. Especially in his case, where he had been fired for pot before, it was more pain. So if he tried to get a job, it would be more painful because he would lose his job every time. This was a cycle. Finally, one day we sat down, we talked about what the pain was of continuing to do pot. And the pleasure would be if he didn't. What if he wasn't addicted to a substance? First he said, I'm not addicted. I said, okay, then don't do it anymore. He said, I can't. Then you're addicted. That's painful. So these two work in conjunction with each other. In hypnotherapy, and the term hypnotherapy is really nothing more than guided visualization. In other words, you're going to be thinking about it and you're going to feel it. In hypnotherapy, we use these two. In the process I developed, we use those two to work with your chemistry, to work with your body, to work with your mind, to avoid and to prevent you from hurting yourself and causing yourself pain. That is the big difference. A lot of people tell you, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, but until you feel it, it doesn't make any difference. Smokers, true story about many thousands of smokers, go to the hospital, have a heart attack. They immediately quit without any reservations. They instantly quit. They do not smoke again because now smoking, instead of being, oh, that's relaxation, no, they realize it's going to kill them. So now instead of it being, hey, I'm cool, I'm high, I'm relaxed, I can laugh a lot, now it's, I'm going to kill myself, I'm going to die. So your brain kicks in and goes, whoa, wait a minute, you're not smoking anymore. You don't want that, it's going to kill you. That's the basis of some of the hypnotherapies that we do. Very simple, to the point. You will do more to avoid pain than you will to seek pleasure. I hate to say that, but that's the reality. Again, you will do more to avoid pain. So if doing it creates pain and not doing it creates pleasure, you now have the carrot and the stick. You will make that change. You will make that change quickly, almost instantly, when you've made the decision and you feel the pain and you feel the pleasure. One more thing about this subject. Notice I said when you feel the pain and when you feel the pleasure. People say, well, how can I do that if I'm not going through that right now? The fact is, if you ever go to a movie and you see a movie and you get emotional, either emotionally good or bad, or you want to kill a guy, or you want to cry, or you want to hug the person, those emotions are real. Your subconscious mind takes those in and they are real. Same thing when we do therapies using the pain and pleasure theory. Simple. We create the pain in your mind, then we create the pleasure in your mind. Of course, you actually do it, I just kind of guide you. And once we get to the pleasure, you no longer want to do the pain. You want to seek the pleasure, and your body and your mind will actually do it for you. It is very, very simple. Anyway, next week we'll talk about some more things, more in depth about what we're doing here. But anyway, until then, have a great weekend and thanks for coming on to YouTube. Bye-bye.